Right then, we are back with another episode. We are on episode 4 now, and it is going to be a very, very special episode today because we do have my better half on today with me. So we have Sophie. So for you guys that follow me, you'll have seen a lot of her on my socials, on my stories, posts, everything like that. You might even follow Sophie yourself. So Sophie is a sports massage therapist, works for Regeneration Physio, that a lot of you guys might be aware of right now. So we're going to be going through it, and I feel like I'm going to know. I don't know what you're going to say. I feel like I'm going to
I don't know what I'm going to say.
I feel like I'm going to have a good guess at what... So I know what your coffee is, but I'm going to have a good guess at what your answers might be. But it's going to be interesting to see what you're going to say. So first of all, welcome to the episode 4. Thank you for coming on.
I was third choice, so, clearly not the best one, but it's fine.
Yeah, but, if we end up doing like hundreds of episodes, third choice, that's pretty high up. That's not bad.
Sorry, you wouldn't be my first choice either, to be fair.
Okay, well, that's just... Now we're just getting mean. Okay, cool. So... Thank you for coming on. Do you want to just give everyone a quick introduction into you, your background? I think, I know it pretty well. I think we've got to know each other fairly well now, but do you want to just let everyone else know?
I'd like to think so. 4 years in, about to buy a house. I think we should know each other pretty well. I'm Sophie. I'm a sports massage therapist, and I work for Regeneration Physio, as you mentioned. I've probably trained now for, I don't know, 4 years maybe a little bit.
I think a bit longer. I think you started about a year before we started dating.
Okay, so for 4 to 5 years, I'd say then. I got into training after recovering from an eating disorder, and just, I don't want to say fell in love with it because I feel like it's really cheesy, but just really enjoy it. And
you fell in love with me. You enjoy training. That's...
This is the way this podcast is going to go, isn't it? No, so I got into it through that, and then just since then, it's just been a big part of my life in terms of what I enjoy. And then I started doing the massage stuff, about 2 years I've been qualified now, but working for Regen since the end of the first lockdown, so just over a year.
Yeah, which has gone fast. It's gone really fast.
Very, very fast, but yeah, it's been a good change, and I suppose I'm going to class our work is in the fitness world, I guess, so... Yeah, well, definitely in the environment.
Yeah,
so.
And a lot of the people you're getting, obviously, with being based in Flex in Pudsey and All Woodley as well. Mm-hmm. Not so much All Woodley, but being Flex in Pudsey. It's a lot of gym goers that you're treating anyway.
Yeah, so I am obviously I work out of a gym, so that definitely helps. And then originally it was based out of the Ultraflex in York, so sticking with the Ultraflexes, sticking with Regen, and just going from there, seeing how we can build it. So
yeah, because it will be about 5 years since you've been training, because we first, the night that we re-bumped into each other, because we were obviously at school together, although we didn't really speak. Cool. I was too cool. But
you're too young.
The first conversation we had was about training again, because I think at that point you were being PT'd in Flex and I was obviously still over in New Era. And we were just chatting about that because our first date was actually
to the dark side.
Our first date was actually a gym session together.
Yes, we did go to the gym, and then we went to the Great Showman, which was arguably the better part of the day, to be fair.
But I think you were just so impressed by what you saw in the gym on the first date, which is why you wanted the second one.
Can you remember what we trained? Because I can.
Back, I think.
Yeah, we did pull.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And then you tried to take me ice skating not long after. That was a fail.
Yeah, it didn't go well. I thought it'd be romantic. Turned out to be an absolute flop, didn't it? I think we did one lap around the rink, holding onto the side every step of the way, being overtaken by children, and then we left.
Yeah, but it's Bradford ice rink, isn't it? It's terrifying because they just whiz around and
I think every ice rink is terrifying, yeah, because people just go so quick.
No, I think it's because when you're young, your parents always tell you if you fall, you need to put your hands in so no one cuts your fingers off.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, so that's me.
So, episode 1, question 1. Question 1, I know what this is already.
Yes.
Coffee. Big coffee drinker, black or white?
Black.
Every time.
Every time. Very, very, very rarely I don't really drink normal milk anyway, to be fair. So that's probably part of it. But no, very rarely put milk in coffee. So it's always black, always an Americano. Or a long black, but not as many places do a long black.
Mm. Although you did venture out last week.
Yeah,
you got oat milk in it.
I got an iced Americano with oat milk in.
My jaw dropped.
Thought I'd be different. Went for it. Enjoyed it, to be fair. Wouldn't get it regularly. Just think, don't need it, do you? Coffee tastes no better without it, just because it's strong.
Yeah, yeah.
I did have a very bad habit of, not when we, no, I don't think we were together at this point. When I used to go to the, well, I still do, but go to the gym at 6 a.m. for PTs, getting a Starbucks on the way, And it just got to the point where I was having like 2 extra shots in it. And that's when you know you're putting too much
having too
caffeine
much.
in an Americano.
Yeah, definitely.
But no, I don't now. Just have like
You
one
literally
coffee a day.
Yeah, one a day and then maybe a decaf, don't you?
I'm very good.
But we do. I mean, we've literally just been for a coffee, haven't we?
Yes, but I've got a decaf because it's nearly the afternoon.
So yeah,
cold.
I'll ask you the question then the same, because I don't actually think, I know we've had the chat about the question, but I don't know if you gave me your answer. Perfect coffee, what would it be? Where would it be?
See, when I listened to your episode with Amy, I did think about it. And then obviously when you sent me the questions before to try and prepare for this, which I haven't done, so heads up, this is probably not
Sent you the questions as though we weren't just sat in the bed next to each other looking at them.
Me, though.
I did send you a link to them,
Send them on WhatsApp.
It was very formal. We keep this relationship extremely formal.
Yes, we keep this table distance at all times, arm length away, so he doesn't get overexcited. See, I don't know. Because there's like a scenario where I've been and a scenario where I've not been, I guess. Or there could be several scenarios where I've not been. So like,
let's say it's somewhere you've been.
So in a scenario we've been, I think it sounds really cheesy and I hate that it's to do with our relationship, but no offence.
Thanks.
But you know, when we go to Annecy.
Yeah.
And then I always think breakfast on that balcony in Annecy in the morning. And I always think coffee hits different first thing in the morning. Like no coffee in the day is better than the first one of the day. I think that's probably like my ideal coffee. And they have nice coffee pods there. So I don't know what
they do. So for reference, we're fortunate enough to have friends that have a place in Annecy in the north of France. It's north of France, isn't it? Just on the border of Switzerland.
French-Swiss border.
It's just around the Alps. It's on Lake Annecy, and they've got a really, really nice apartment there that we've been to a few times for a holiday. And it literally has a really beautiful little balcony that looks directly out onto Lake Annecy, and then you've got a backdrop of all the mountains and
people paragliding,
hot air balloons, all sorts.
And you're not finished each other's sentences in
this. Yeah. But it is genuinely the nicest. It's the nicest place I've ever been, from a scenery point of view. But it's interesting because it's
not the best coffee I've ever had.
It's not.
But the scenario itself is.
But the coffee, it's just home. Like it's just we make it ourselves. It's not like we're getting it from a coffee shop.
I do think coffees in Paris and France in general.
Yeah.
Like Amsterdam's obviously not in Paris, but are pretty bang on, to be fair.
Yeah, but that's interesting because I've not told you what mine would be. But I've thought about it, and that would be my place as well. Would be on the it's one of two. It's either on the balcony, looking out onto it, or if I was skilled enough, it would be getting a coffee onto a paddleboard and going off the paddleboard. Because there's a paddleboard stop out.
Let's just take a minute. Who hasn't fallen in paddleboarding? Me.
Yeah, but you've also you were stood up for like 20% of the time.
That isn't true. There's lots of pictures of me stood up on a paddleboard.
I just went for it, you know.
No, you wouldn't be skilled. No offense, you wouldn't be skilled enough to stand up. Maybe if you sat down.
I've stood up. No, I wouldn't be skilled enough to take a coffee on it.
You have stood up on it before.
No. Ideally, I would get a coffee out on the paddleboard and take the paddleboard out into the middle of the lake because that is like the most at peace I think I've ever felt doing that. I love it. But I mean, you know, because I want to do it all the time. But I don't think I'm skilled enough that I think I would fall in and lose my coffee very quickly.
No, somewhere like that, definitely like Paris. I love Paris as well. Annecy, or I know I've not been, but I feel like Italy would be like, I don't know, I like city vibes. I like vibes like that. I know Annecy, again, like Dwar and whatnot, isn't a like city vibe, but I think that in terms of somewhere we've been, but places in like Paris and cities like that, and yeah, they're just pretty spot on.
When you think about where your ideal place will be to have one, it's never going to be in this country.
No.
Like, it's just not. No. It's always going to be abroad.
As nice as they are, to be fair, though, like when we went to London, like shout out 26 Grains, because that place is
very good, to be fair.
Very good food.
Well, it's more your food than my food. The coffee's really nice.
Anything brunchy, I'm all for. I mean, there's some good coffee places around here.
Yeah, well, Mill Kitchen, where we've just been, is class. Corner Cup that we've started going to in Bramwell is really, really nice. And then
there's a Starbucks just 5 minutes.
There is a Starbucks, and if we ever go into town, it's always If or Lane's Espresso.
If Lane's or Mrs. Athers. Yeah, or
Wolf Fox. But that's for like breakfast as well.
Yeah.
Really good.
So yeah, I know. We do pretty well in Leeds coffee-wise, I'd say.
I think that is our main hobby, is going for coffee, to be fair. So obviously this is going to be slightly different to what the episodes have previously been, because obviously like Amy, Lydia, and myself are all coaches. Whereas you're not a coach, so when we talk about your specific area of the fitness industry, it's not from a practitioner point of view, which is quite cool, and I quite like that it's going to be from a different viewpoint, and it's not always going to be a coaching viewpoint.
No.
Because I feel like people listening to yourself is going to be much, much more relatable with it not being from a coach's perspective. So when we're going to be talking about the fitness industry for you, what context or area would you say you fall into in that bracket?
See, it's a weird one. So anytime any people ask me like what I enjoy training wise, or like clients ask me or whatnot, I'd say I train in a bodybuilding style, but I am definitely not a bodybuilder and have no desire to be a bodybuilder. And that's not taking anything away from actual bodybuilders. It's just not, I enjoy training for training. Obviously, with my job, that's sort of it's not fitness based, but it's obviously very health based and helping keep people recover and all that sort of thing. And as physios, obviously, there's a lot of fixing people that break themselves during when they're training and stuff like that. But no, definitely someone that has bodybuilding style training, but is very much like more bothered about, not more bothered, but like it's lifestyle and health to me has always been more important than
that's been the main driver.
Side of anything.
You would never do anything from a training or nutritional perspective to improve the aesthetic side of things if it was going to be at a cost of the health and lifestyle side of things.
It's just a good benefit, isn't it? Like obviously your aesthetic changes.
Positive. Yeah, and that's obviously from your background and where you got into it was very much from improving a health and lifestyle area.
Yeah.
It wasn't from a physique based area. There is always going to be an element of that to it.
No. So it's a difficult one because for context with me on that, like obviously people might presume that I transitioned from having one eating disorder into like an exercise based eating disorder, because that can obviously, that's the risk that people take when they recover from an eating disorder. So for reference, I had anorexia and then start training. There can be a crossover in people actually not being like letting go of that control and then putting that control into exercise and obsessive exercise.
It's like channeling the obsessive behaviour into something else.
So it becomes like orthorexia instead, which is obviously just as problematic as something like anorexia, because then it's like building an unhealthy relationship. And I think my relationship with it's never been unhealthy, but it's definitely improved. Whereas at first I was still struggling more with myself, and not necessarily, it wasn't like my body or what it looked like or anything like that, but I think there was a lot of issues still going on, which I did sort of put some of that control into training, but over time that's like all dissipated, if you know what I mean. So it's not like now it's not the same relationship I had with it when I started training, but it helped me build myself
get to
back
this point. It's a necessary step, even if it's not necessarily a fix, sort of taking that obsessive behaviour from what it was to channel it into the gym. It's certainly a step in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, for, again, more context, like by the time I started training again, I was a healthy weight again. I went through my anorexia recovery, and it's different for everyone, but some people would start training alongside putting the weight on. I didn't. I mean, it took like 5 years, but I got to the point where I was considered to be a healthy weight before I started training. And when I started training, because of what my body had been through, I couldn't hold myself in like a body weight squat position. Like I didn't have any muscle. Obviously I didn't have any muscle when I was poorly. So I put on the weight in order to obviously protect myself and survive. But I was very aware that with what I'd been through, I'd lost any strength. I'd lost any sort of muscle, and it wasn't although I was like at a healthy weight, it wasn't necessarily like a healthy point to be at. I don't know. Yeah. Just so I don't. It's one of those, isn't it? Like it was. I probably could have just carried on as I was, and naturally it would have, like muscle would have been built from just like living life again. But I knew that I actually wanted to, like, just have a better relationship with everything. Because to be fair, before my eating disorder, I wasn't massively into like any kind of sport or anything like that. I just liked going out and having a good time and spending time with my friends and socialising and doing all that sort of thing. So I wasn't like a gym. I went to the gym, but I wasn't like really into it. But it definitely grew into something I actually really enjoyed. And I wasn't like punishing myself with exercise. I don't think that's ever been part of it, which I'm grateful for. Because like I said, I think for some people in my situation, it can very quickly change into something else. Yeah. But that's been like we said, like
let's go into the first question then. So in terms of what the fitness industry is to you, in terms of how you've experienced it, what would you say is wrong with it?
Oh, we're starting with what's wrong with it.
Well, let's start with what's right with it.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it the wrong way around that now. Let's start with what's right with it.
So this again, I'll try to talk about what's right with it without talking about what's wrong with it. So I'm not going to like back up myself by being like, but on the other hand, this is blah, blah, blah. I think what's right with it is there are a lot of people out there who genuinely want to improve people's lives. Like there are people that give you a lot of information, like free information as well. Like social media obviously has its downsides, which obviously we can get onto. But there are people that you can learn from, especially in like the functional medicine world. I love all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Who you'd never have any chance of connecting with or hearing about or learning from, who are genuinely some of the people that are like the most, not just interesting, but informative and like genuine in terms of like wanting to improve people's health, not the physiques necessarily, but people's actual fundamentals and
like
and the lifestyles.
People that you followed, like I can't pronounce his surname, but Jake Dolshalal.
He's an Australian.
Where he puts on stuff where it's not the case of he helps his clients get a six-pack or he helps his clients feel more confident, which is great. He helps his clients like literally fix cirrhosis or stuff that they've suffered with stuff that they've suffered with for years and years. And that is incredible.
Yeah, because I just think though there's like, obviously, not saying all bodybuilders and all like, there's a lot of very, very good informative people, but I think those people that share more about like the basis of your health and like hormonal stuff and like gut health and all that kind of thing, that's always going to be the foundation of building on everything else. And I just feel like that's what's right with it, is that there is all these genuine people that have more of a platform and you're able to like access that information. I think that's probably the best thing about it. I also think it's like it's becoming more accessible to people, like the general person. So I'm not saying I'm not the general person, but for like people who may want to like lose weight and might be a bit more overweight, like I feel like now, again with social media and even like I mean TikTok, I'm only very new to that, and like Instagram and with lockdowns and YouTube and stuff, like people don't have to go to a gym anymore to feel like they can actually like feel empowered by stuff. And I think like when you can filter through all the rubbish and find those people, they're the ones that are making like a positive difference to the everyday person. Like fitness is definitely more accessible than it was before. And I think you talked about this the other day, so we won't get into it too much, but I think obviously like people showing like Gymshark, I know very controversial in terms of their models and whatnot, but that's important to see that you can exercise and be healthy and have a good relationship with food and not look like a bodybuilder. It's not always the end goal for people. And I think that's the most important thing, because there's a lot wrong with it, and not even from just like a social media perspective, but from like a government perspective, not to get political, but like a government perspective, and like the amount of money that goes into it and the information that's even put out by like official people and like the NHS sometimes, like it's
ridiculous. Even what's shown on TV, like the this morning, the other day that we were looking at with the nutritionist that was the air quotations nutritionist that was on there that had worked with the royal family, who was trying to push a 3-day-a-week fasting diet for 500 calories a day or something for a quick weight loss plan. And it's just stuff like that. We're getting into the negatives of it now, but stuff like that is just the fact that that sort of information is given a platform with no context or no background into this would only be appropriate for you if X, Y, and Z. And you need to make sure that on the days you're not fasting, you are eating enough. And you need to know that there isn't such a thing as bad foods or anything like that. Like the fact that they just chuck that information out there for people to follow is very, very dangerous.
Like, it's even like during one of the lockdowns, I think one of the most problematic things that came up was obviously there was a big push for the Couch to 5K, which I don't think is a negative initiative. I don't. But it's when the government decided that weighing primary school children is going to be a good thing in order to keep them healthy. No, it's not.
No.
Like, that is so dangerous. And for a start, like, obviously you do, this is your area. And then like one of my best friends is doing a PhD in nutrition, and she's had the chance to go into schools and teach them about it. But that's not something that you learn in school.
No,
it's nothing that you learn in school is about like nutrition or how to be healthy. And I think fat shaming a child.
Well, I think it's reinforcing that negative behaviour that weight is your value. Your weight is your value
and
or
also,
your worth.
how many people are chubby as a child and then like you have a
All
growth
kids are
spurt and it
How
all,
chubby
like,
was I? I was a well chubby kid.
Yeah. And
Oh,
as well,
thanks.
I mean, yeah, but like just in general, like everyone's chubbier as a child.
Yeah.
And as well, like, what was I going to say? With like BMI as well, I don't know if this is true, but I think it might be just based on who shared it. The BMI like scale was coined in like the 1800s.
Oh, it's a very, very old reference.
And
yeah.
I just think, and again, knowing from personal experience, obviously, like I was at a point once where my BMI was very, very low, but I was discharged from a situation by the healthcare industry when I still wasn't of a healthy BMI, of a healthy weight, of a healthy mindset, just because of time scale.
Yeah.
And I think you've got all these measures of what people are supposedly like healthy for, like make someone healthy, make someone not healthy. But there's so much conflict of information all the time, which is why, back onto the positives, people that you can find online and through courses and through referrals and all that kind of thing, who genuinely know more than the people that you hear a lot from, are so worth finding and make it all. I don't know if it makes it all worth it, because I don't know what there's more of, arguably. But I think if you can find those people, then that's when you're winning, really, because there's so much good information out there. It's just finding it.
There's loads, but that's the problem. It's difficult to find, and it's not given the platform like the easy solutions that you get see pushed on TV, because the solutions that they give, they're not simple solutions. They're not just a quick fix plan. There is, chances are, if you're going to someone like them to fix an issue that you've had for years, it's going to take a long time to fix.
Yeah, I think that's kind of just like more of a societal problem though, isn't it? I suppose, where like we all want quick fixes and instant gratification. We're used to everything just appearing and happening as it is. And it doesn't work like that. Like, arguably, this is a very sweeping generalisation because I know for some people it's very hard, but weight loss is easier in terms of seeing a result from, arguably. Like, this is, again, not for everyone. Than sort of building muscle or something. But I think a lot of these like transformations you see and things like that make it seem like you're failing if you're not achieving that. But I think that sort of goes for everything with social media. It's not just the fitness industry. I just think the world we live in now, you've just got to be take everything with a pinch of salt, I guess.
Yeah.
And realise that there's just a lot of smoke and mirrors and try not to compare yourself. It's very difficult. But then at the same time, back to more positives, there is a good, especially like through working in Ultraflex, I think that's when my eyes were open in terms of the bodybuilding world. Because I'd been training for 2-3 years before that. But actually working in that environment and in that gym made me realise how big the bodybuilding world is and how not cliquey it can. Well, it can be cliquey.
Well, it's a very small bubble in itself that can then, when you're in it, seem like the entire world.
But that's the thing. So I think it feels like it's everything. It's the only thing you need to be worried about. And then you have like this reality check when you go to work, or well, not as much for me because I work in that environment as well. But when you see your friends who don't necessarily go to the gym or they play sport instead or do other things and have other interests, and they have no idea who all these big bodybuilders are, they couldn't care less, and they're all just having a nice time, like doing their own thing. You sort of realise it feels like everything when you're in it, but it is its own world.
Yeah, but then that's the same for a lot of things.
Yeah, no, it is.
That's the same for
I'm not saying
loads
that's
of different
necessarily a bad thing.
Sports and hobbies. No, not at all. So then let's go on to.
Totally lost track of.
Let's go on to what you've perceived. What's wrong with it? What's bad with the fitness industry? But let's try and keep this just down to one thing.
Okay. I'd say again though, it's like just the counter of what we were saying there is the main thing. I think unfortunately there's a lot of misinformation.
Yeah.
And I'd say arguably the most dangerous thing is anyone can have that platform.
Yes.
So although there's all these amazing, it's literally the positive and the negative is the same thing in my opinion, I think. Like there's so many amazing people who you wouldn't be able to learn from if these platforms didn't exist. But there's no regulation on who is able to talk about these things.
Yeah. And
especially in like the role that as an online coach or a nutritionist, you're not protected. You're not like a dietitian. That term is a protected term.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just call yourself that. Like, as an example, I did my sports massage qualification I did probably about an hour during that on nutrition.
Yeah.
I can legally, so to speak, and according to my qualification, give nutritional advice. That's something I would never do.
Yeah.
Because to me, there's a lot of people who give advice to people on like, and they don't realize how detrimental it could be and how important it is and how individualized it is to to that person.
That's the issue when there's the lack of, when there isn't that protection of the title, and anyone can just basically, with online coaching, for example, could wake up one morning and literally be like, do you know what? I want to be a coach. I'm going to make an Instagram page and I'm going to get going. There's nothing there that's going to protect someone who's approaching a coach to know that they have been properly educated or trained in that aspect.
In my opinion, with that as well, if people are coming from my background, for example, I think obviously there is responsibility of the person to tell whoever they are approaching, but I do genuinely think there's a lot of coaches out there who probably wouldn't understand how serious that is and how what anything they say or do or program could trigger those behaviours and cause, like, not necessarily a relapse in terms of weight loss or things like that, but a relapse in terms of mindset about food and things like that. Like, I just think it's important that, I don't know, I just feel like a lot of people do a bodybuilding show, and again, this is not slanting people for doing a bodybuilding show, but then feel for some reason like that qualifies them to be responsible for other people. It's not even just about being a coach. Like, you've got a responsibility to a big part of someone's life there and someone's health.
Yeah.
And I know from past coaches I've had and like current coach and stuff like that, like, they very much discourage people from trying to compete and things like that if they don't think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But I do think there are people out there who unfortunately wouldn't do the same thing.
Like any industry, you're going to get people that are just there to make money from it, basically, and send out whatever they can to make money in the easiest way. But like we were saying the other day, I've had conversations with people who have asked me about what I do in terms of coaching and how I work and how the business works, because they want to then coach themselves. And it's quite often with that caveat of, well, I really enjoy training. I spend a lot of time in the gym, so I figured I might as well be an online coach, or I might as well try being an online coach. And I always try and say to them, it's a sense of, that's great that you enjoy training. And, you know, you even have that natural aptitude to, they might ask, like, where's good to go to get some education from? Who can I learn from? What good courses are there? Which is amazing. And that's really, really good. But I always bring it back to the point of, do you actually care about other people? And not like from not saying that they're selfish, but are you actually concerned with, if you were to work with other people and they weren't making progress or they weren't doing what you were saying, would you care about trying to help them fix that and get them to a point where they are happy? Or would it just be frustration that they're not listening to what you say? Like, there is a big, big difference between enjoying training and being a coach. And it's the two, unfortunately, I think are there's a lot of crossover there.
So by what you're sort of saying, for people that just enjoy, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this either, but like enjoy going to the gym and then decide they want to be an online coach, I think you've got to think about the fact that the majority of the people that are going to come to you initially,
they're not going to be in the same headspace.
No, they're not going to be the top bodybuilders who are going to just do everything you say without question. They're going to be the people that need more help in just lifestyle and mindset and balancing everything. Yeah. And it should not, for most people, it shouldn't be 100% the only thing that they're bothered about. Like, all those other factors are what makes your life an actual life. Yeah. So it's just, it's a different one.
No, that's so true. And that leads quite nicely into sort of the next segment, which is, what would you say is the one sort of standout thing for you that you've seen that is commonly misunderstood?
I think people don't understand how complex people are. So I think it's misunderstood that what works for you as a client, say like if you've done a show and what your coach may have done with you might not be the best practice for someone like you're working with,
so example. So then it's from a coaching perspective, that answer.
From a coaching perspective. Yeah. It doesn't look the same for everyone because everyone's different, and you can fit it into the lifestyle you want to have a lot of the time. I'm not saying that you don't have to say, if you do want to lose weight, you might have to make sacrifices and change going out for meals every 2 days or something. But I think you can, at the end of the day, it's something that should fit into your life, not that something that your life should have to turn into.
Yeah. It should complement, not coincide.
Yeah. And I think it's probably just from like a personal perspective as well. I think especially now, a lot of people think that you can't go to the gym and enjoy training without wanting to compete. Like the amount of times I've been asked, "Oh, do you want to compete?" And I'm, again, not slagging anyone off for asking me that question, but working in a gym, doing what I do now, when people find out you go to the gym and they're like, "Do you want to compete?" And I'm like, "Oh, no, it's not for me. I just enjoy training."
Yeah.
I think you can enjoy training and enjoy wanting to look better, or like your physique can be just as important to you as someone that's competing, but you don't, that isn't the end goal for everyone, and it shouldn't be for a start, and it, like, you don't need it to be either. Like, for a lot of people that wouldn't be the right thing to do, and it's something that shouldn't do. And I always say this, and I'll repeat myself, but it's one of those things as well. Like, if Instagram didn't exist, I feel like the amount of people that compete this
would be a hell of a lot less.
Would drop quite a lot.
Would be a lot less.
And again, this isn't slagging anyone off that does, because admiration to people that do, because I couldn't do it personally. But I just think it's like misunderstood that is should always be the end goal, but is the end goal for a lot of people. And I think before getting into that scenario, people need to make sure that they've basically got the right mindset for it more than anything. And we know loads, like, don't get me wrong, I've got lots of friends that do compete and definitely do have like the mindset for that. And
have a healthy relationship with it as well.
Relationship, and are so impressive and are doing it for themselves. But I think it's a problem when people do it for other people.
And we've spoken about this before, because I've had a few conversations, because I don't prep people for shows, that's not what I do.
No.
But obviously, knowing people that have prepped, I've seen people in the past who have decided to do a show, and the very first thing they do is make an Instagram page to document the journey.
Yeah.
Now,
there's nothing inherently wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that, because it can just be for an accountability thing. You know, if you're putting content out, if you're sharing your story with people, it keeps you accountable to staying on plan, to getting to the end. But at the same time, there's then a lot of pressure that I've found comes with that, of then you start to feel like, or people that I've spoken to start to feel like they then have to do it because they have to keep posting, because people are now expecting them to compete. And when they start to realise that, maybe this isn't for me, maybe I don't want to actually do this, they then start feeling very anxious and fearful of stopping it because of the Instagram page or whatever it is that they've started. So it's always that, I always say to them, look, are you doing this for you, or have you done this for someone else? Because you don't need to be documenting it if it's just purely for you.
Yeah. And there is people, again, that we know that document it for themselves and to show people the journey, and like
100%.
enjoying it and stuff. But no, I do know what you mean. That's like, I'm going to shout out Anya, because like Anya Lambert, who is absolutely smashed it every time she competes.
Yeah.
And she's been at uni the whole time, but now she's started working because she's graduated. Barely ever documents anything about her fitness journey on her Instagram. I mean, she does post every now and again, of course. But it's just like, you don't see it all, and then she just shows up and like smashes it. And I think it's just one of them things, like, obviously to her it's a big, big part of her life. And she's absolutely sensational, but she doesn't feel the need to show it all to everyone all the time. And I think that's just important in general, though, isn't it? It's not just like in a bodybuilding context or a training or food context or anything like that. Like, I think that goes for your personal Instagram, where you might post pictures of being out with your mates or doing this and that. Like, you don't need to post everything.
Yeah.
Because then that just becomes a second job.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's just white noise to everyone else that's looking at it, aren't they? Because everyone's so like wrapped up in in what they're doing as well. Yeah. I feel like we've just deviated there from the question again.
But no, there is always going to be people where it is very...
Lambert and it's Limbert. And when I said it, I was like, that didn't sound right.
It is very evident that it is coming from an internal place, like with Anya, like with Will, like with Steph.
Yeah.
Like those guys, absolute power couple. But then you obviously are going to get people on the flip side where they are doing it for an external reasons point of view.
I don't think they realise it themselves. That's what I think. A lot of the time people think their intentions are sort of like intrinsic, so they're like for themselves. But I think it's one of those things. I think if you decide to do that sort of thing and get into the competing world, it's probably like taking a long hard sit down with yourself and being like, right, why am I doing this? What am I going to get out of this? Is it a personal challenge to myself, or am I doing it to post a pretty picture on Instagram?
We're saying all this from a point of view where we don't compete.
Oh, no.
So it's obviously we don't have the full understanding and appreciation of how that actually feels and what goes through your head
Yeah.
when you do decide to compete. And like we said, hats off to everybody that does, because
Oh, yeah.
it is a very,
Not knocking
very...
anyone that
No,
does
not
it.
at all. It is a really impressive thing to do, and it takes a hell of a lot of effort and sacrifice and commitment. But yeah, there is definitely that side to it. But then again, there's that side to everything, isn't there? There's
Yeah.
always going to be those sorts of negatives to everything that people do and everything that we do. So leading into the next question then, if you could change one thing about the fitness industry off the back of all that, what would it be?
Okay, so there's a few. I'll keep them short. So it has to be more regulated.
Yeah.
Like, people need to have some
Like we're
sort
saying.
of qualification. You've got to declare it. The consumers need to be made more aware of what you should be looking for when you're looking for someone to coach you or to work with you in any capacity.
The personal training course, obviously I know you haven't done this, but you, as someone, because you have such a natural interest in it anyway, like to do the personal training course for you would be able to do it. You probably wouldn't really learn anything new.
No.
Like, it's a very, very basic course, and the level of knowledge that you get from doing that allows you to then work with people is quite scary, because I can say that, like, having obviously done that and then gone on and done various other courses on various other topics, like, that probably accounts for not even 5% of the knowledge that I now have and use with people 100%. On a daily basis.
Well, you're always going to learn more once you're actually working with people, aren't you?
Well, 100%.
The only other thing I'd change, and this would be like magical fairy world, just probably in life, would be taking away all the comparison for people. I feel like people would be a lot happier, a lot healthier, and just a lot happier and a lot healthier if you weren't comparing your journey with someone else. Like, I've been there, where you look at people and you're like, oh, they've been training the same amount of time as me. Why are they X amount of times bigger than me? But everyone's got different starting points and different lives. And I think if you could take away that element of comparison, even if it would still to see everything, but that switch just wasn't there.
Yeah, I think
that'd make it
it's
more positive world.
Definitely, because it's useful from a sense of, if you use that comparison for motivation and for positive reasons, it can be really, really useful. So if you see someone who's in good shape and you use that as I want to look like that, I'm going to work as hard as I need to work and enjoy the process to get to that point, that's great. But it's when it becomes a flip side of, why don't I look like that? What am I doing wrong?
And it's not seeing all the, obviously you see things which some people brand as like a 8-week transformation, but a lot of them aren't that.
Yeah.
So if you could just take away all, like, just make everything a lot more transparent, I think is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. And then from that transparency, I think naturally you'd get a lot less comparison.
Yeah.
Between yourselves, because it's all the stuff. No one else's fitness journey really should make a difference to yours.
Yeah.
But naturally, by like how we are as people, I think that happens.
Yeah. So just to take it back a second then, because you've spoken a bit about the sort of people on social media that you found really useful that give out this free information and free content. Who would you say, if you had to choose two, who would be your sort of top 2 people from that you would advise people to go and follow and listen to?
So with this mentor's question, I've got about 6 different answers, but they're all in different contexts. So social media is in people that I don't know, don't know, and they're not even necessarily fitness. I'm going to go more health with this too. Jolie and Brian would probably be like my top one, I think, because for anyone who doesn't know, Jolie and Brian is like a
Dr. Jolie
Brian is like a hormone Wonder Woman, specifically for women. A lot to do with
menstrual cycle,
the pill, and everything like that. But the amount of free content, blogs, all sorts that she does is like unbelievable. And I think as a woman, obviously, like most people and everyone should be having like a regular period and stuff. But I don't think, and definitely at school, you don't learn about what that should look like. Like people get so used to having like awful PMS and awful bleeds and cramps and all this kind of thing.
And just accept it.
Yeah, and just accept it. Whereas she sort of debunks all that in sort of talks about the reasons as to why that can be, and the importance of balancing your hormones, and the importance of everything female hormone related, really. And I think the amount of information she puts out there is so important, just in every aspect for women. I'm not saying that men's health isn't as important, but But
No,
as a
but
woman, I think
women
is probably
have it-
the best
women-
source of information.
Yeah, women have it harder. Like,
Yeah, they
point
do.
blank, there is no arguing of that. Certainly when it comes to body composition, if we take it back there, like, women have it so much harder. And that's something that when you do your PT qualification, everything, there's hormone cycles never even mentioned. It's not even a thing. But then when you start working with people, obviously with females, with women, it affects it so much. Like, from week to week, month to month, a woman's body composition, her weight, her hunger, cravings, all sorts, energy, strength, metabolism, it all changes on a weekly basis, and you need to have an understanding and awareness from a coaching perspective of how that is happening, or at least have an understanding of how it would work on a general scale, and then you can start to pick into how it works for that individual person, because not everyone's the same.
But I think even more so than that, it's just how it all affects your daily life and how you feel as a person.
Yeah.
And whether you're constantly knackered, constantly feeling anxious, having digestive upset, everything under the sun, like, it's just so important to understand it as a general rule.
Yeah.
And then obviously apply it to training as well.
Yeah.
Because everyone's different, but I just think she's a queen. Dr. Carrie Jones is also a queen in that
She's
respect.
another really good one, isn't she? But I think she's a bit more generalised with her hormones. And she does a lot of HRT stuff, a lot of HRT
does a lot about
advice
and thyroid and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
She's very good as well. But my other social media-y person in this whole, I'm going to guess health as well, because it's like mindset. I'd say for me, this year has been Vex King.
Yeah, with his books as well.
Yeah, so on social media, obviously he's on social media, but good vibes, good life. Like, and I've read a lot of self-help books and a lot of mindset-based stuff and a lot about psychology. Like, that is a big interest of mine, like mindset and stuff like that. But something about good vibes, good life just resonated. And I think how that book isn't a very complex book. It's very short. It's very easy to read. But his message and what he's trying to get across, I just think is so important, because just to like sum it up in a very rubbish way, I'm sure, but like, it's not about being positive all the time and good things happening all the time, but it's just about learning how to deal with life as it happens and not letting that like crumble you and being able to recover from the difficult stuff and where to like draw boundaries and things like that, so that you are creating your positive space and not creating what you think you should based on everyone else around you. And I think he's just a very, very good one to follow and to read the books of.
So before we finish, because we're pretty much done now, if someone is listening to this and they're currently struggling it could be to lose weight, it could be to stick to a training plan, it could be literally anything, it could even just be struggling with mindset. What is like the one piece of advice that you would give someone?
Oh God.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it?
From a non-coaching perspective.
Putting you on the spot from a non-coaching perspective, which is why it's quite nice.
Yeah.
What is the one piece of advice that you've had that's really helped you?
Okay, so this isn't a piece of advice I've had, but it's the first thing that pops into my head is think about why you're doing it in the first place. Because if you're wanting to lose weight or change the way you look, and it's driven by other people or comparison, as we were talking about before, or things like that, it's never going to happen. I suppose drawing on my own experience, like recovering from my eating disorder, I thought I wanted to get better. I didn't get better till I genuinely wanted that. It wasn't about other people wanting me to get better at that point. That was me wanting to change. And I think that's the same in any respect, whether you're wanting to lose weight, build muscle, whatever. Until you're ready to actually change and you want that for yourself, it's never going to happen. Yeah. So that would be my piece of advice.
I love that. That's really good, because that is something that I spend a lot of time talking to clients about as well, is diving into like the why behind their goal. So why that is important to them and why they want to do it. Because when you do dive into it, you're either going to realise it's not something you actually want, which is fine.
Yeah, that's the thing. You don't need to want these things.
You're going to really understand why it's important to you. When you have that understanding, you have that clarity, that gives you the motivation and the discipline you need to then actually go and achieve whatever it is. So
I also think everyone should go to therapy.
Yeah, you are a big advocate, aren't you? Big advocate. But yeah, no, that's great. That's really, really great. So I think we'll leave it there, and we'll go make some lunch.
Is that my last question?
That's your last question.
Do I not get to be asked where people can find me on socials?
Well, you can do. More than happy to give them out.
Yeah, I'm not very good with content. It stresses me out. With my own content.
Yeah.
Obviously, like, it's like doing stuff for Regen and whatnot.
Yeah,
I
you
do
obviously
post stories.
You do post stories and you do share it. You
And
do a
I
lot
am
of visceral
there.
vats and a lot of quizzes.
I like
You do like doing
I
those.
I like a quiz. I think
Yeah.
people respond to stories and quizzes more.
Definitely more
Yeah.
engaging, aren't they? The more fun.
Yeah. So
What is your
my work Instagram is Sophie Mack _Regen Physio. And then I'll just plug the Regen Physio one, which is at Regen Physio.
Yeah.
So give us a follow on there. We're always more than happy to
Definitely
help if you drop us a direct message. And no, I probably don't post as often as I should, but I do post stories.
You definitely do. And Regen's, like you mentioned itself, is really good account. Is a really good account to follow just for the advice that it gives out from a rehab point of view, from a physio point of view.
We've got a lot to come on there as well with different
a lot of content. I've seen you been planning it.
And all sorts that we're going to do to try and help people out on there. So yeah, I need to get better at posting on my own, but we don't need to talk about that. See, we don't need the pressure of outside sources.
Definitely go give Sophie a follow and go give Regen a follow as well. So thank you for coming on and recording the episode.
Can we get food now?
Episode number 4. We can definitely go and make food now because I am starving.
Let's hope Jason's as nice as I was when he's on.
Yeah, hopefully looking forward to that one.
He'll be more critical than me.
He will, yeah. So thank you for listening. Looking forward to the next episode. I will see you all soon.